Hey everybody, Dave Lindbergh in Hong Kong with a different kind of episode of THD Podcast. Today we're going to be talking with Philip Richardson of True Analog, a speaker and audio systems factory near Guangzhou. And we're going to get an update on the kind of boots on the ground perspective on what's going on in China in terms of the barriers at the border and these kind of issues. So we're going to get a full update on that. But without delay, let's give a thanks to our sponsor, the ALTI Association. So we encourage everybody to join ALTI and get into that good audio networking stuff. So without delay, let's say hello. Richard, good morning. How are you today?
Hello, Dave. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you, even though it's e-meeting. Although you're only an hour away, it seems like a world away.
Yeah.
But that'll change soon enough.
Yeah, so for people perspective, where I am in Hong Kong to where Richard or Philip, sorry, I'm mixing up your last and first name, where Philip is in Guangzhou is roughly about 2 hours between the bus and the train and the taxi. So
That's right.
but it's not that far geographically, but with the current situation is what we're going to talk about today. It's been a bit of a challenge. So I've got a list of questions. So if it's all right with you, Philip, would you like to let's start with a brief introduction on True Analog, and then we'll get into my questions.
My name is Philip Richardson. I'm an American. I've been here for 22 years. And the name of my factory is True Analog Strictly OEM. We specialize in the design, engineering, and manufacturing of premium drivers and systems. And we're located in Panyu, southern China. And the ferry terminal, it's a one-stop ferry terminal from Kowloon to Lianhuanshan when under normal conditions.
Right. Yeah, so hopefully those ferries don't go out of business before we get back to normalcy here. It is kind of for people, if they're visiting, taking the ferry into Guangzhou is a lot more fun than navigating the bus to Lohu and then the train to Guangzhou East, etc.
Yeah.
So if I could, Philip, how about I've got a list of questions to go through with you that I think will give the viewers a good overview on what's been going on and what the status is with China. So let's start with question number one. So since it is difficult to get in and out of China, from your perspective, what do you suggest that brands do to expedite their product development process?
Okay, that's a good one, Dave. I'm a firm believer in understanding that the constraints, understanding the cost and physical constraints up front. So the manufacturer has got to get a hold of the cost constraints and the physical constraints up front. The product from the conception shade, from the conception should be as much as possible fully understood between the supplier and the manufacturer, and beat up the design in the development stage, working with the cabinet, the steel, the cone, whatever the component manufacturer is, just so that both parties understand and have a full grasp on what the constraints are up front before going any deeper. And that's why design failure mode effect analysis is very important in the conception stage, design stage of the product. And video, much like what you and I are doing right now, is critical. It's tantamount. It's a pivot point in the speed and the process of new product development. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff. And yeah, like I always love the acronyms, and I think it's FEMA is something that you'll hear production engineers refer to, the failure mode effect analysis. And there's a few other systems. There's the Phillips method, which was one that was developed years ago to analyze these things. So that's always good, I think, to define the definitions. Like, what are we calling things? Like, just the other day, I was in a meeting with a German headphone company, and the German headphone company was calling the damping material it was a weave or some other word, whereas the Taiwanese driver supplier was calling it a mesh. So making sure everybody's aligned on those definitions is kind of a good habit. It's a little bit might seem painful, but the clarity, I think, is the general point that you're getting.
And you're right, because the Germans are very organized, very astute, and so when they say a weave, it's in the most literal point. It is in fact a weave, but Asians will call that a mesh, and it is not necessarily a mesh. It's something that's been pulled apart. And so understanding that, and by having a video up front, it'll just reduce the time immediately.
Sure. Okay, and then talking about getting things right. So what's your opinion on hiring like third-party inspection teams? What's some experience you have?
Well, maybe it's something that I'm about to say, something that SGS, TUV, and other inspection companies may not want to hear. And I can only speak about the loudspeaker industry because that's what I know. Third-party QC teams, in my personal opinion, only mine, for the large part, are a galactic waste of time, money, and effort. The brand name owner pays to get a warm and fuzzy, thinking that he's going to get a QC team there to inspect his good. But here's what really happens. Their money pays for the transportation time from the time the QC guy leaves his home or her home and gets to the factory. So they leave, the factory opens 8 a.m. The QC guy leaves his home at 8 a.m. because it's a normal workday for him. The third-party QC guy gets to the factory at, say, 9:30 or 10 o'clock. The owner is paying for that, whoever's hiring them. The factory has already wasted an hour and a half, 2 hours waiting on the QC team to arrive. And so they just sideline the production, waiting for the QC guy to come. By the time the QC guy comes, he or she has to become familiar with the product. And after they become familiar with the product, and on, they begin inspection at 1 o'clock. So the first half of the morning is burnt. And so the solution is if the brand name owner wants to hire a third party inspection team, here's what they should do. They should become familiar with the product in 3 visits. The first visit should be during pre-production. So then they can become familiar with it and understand it and all of that. Attend pre-production, and then attend Mass Pro. I have witnessed QC teams not understanding what they're supposed to inspect when they come here, and we're shipping it that day. And they want to open a box to inspect, and I ask them, "What are you inspecting?" "Oh, we want to see what it looks like and make sure it works." I asked the QC team, "Have you ever seen this product before?" They said, "No, first time." "So how do you know it knows it works?"
Right.
So then we have a rush. We have a hasty phone call because we're loading the container with the brand name owner, and then we go through it while we're loading the container. Everything is fine because we don't need inspection teams. I have a very good grasp of what is needed, but this one new customer was accustomed to having a QC team, no longer come. So you want to use this QC team to mitigate, circumvent, avoid you having a wasted container of product coming to your factory, coming to your doorstep, wherever in the world you might be. But it's important that the third-party QC teams understands fully what they're inspecting before Mass Pro. They have to get involved during the development stage, or when the product is final and you're about to go Mass Pro, send them down to the factory to learn about the product.
Yeah, I think that translates to a lot of aspects of the supply chain. Like another example might be in purchasing, where somebody's looking at the bill of materials on a driver and they just go, we need to shave 10% off this. Well, perhaps neodymium, there's no 10% to shave off. So they'll just be punishing themselves. A little bit of intelligence in quality control, inspection, and purchasing is, I think, the general theme of just don't send somebody that makes shoes to inspect a speaker factory. It's like the classic, don't go to an Italian restaurant and order a burger. So
That's right.
all right.
Yeah,
So
you're right. You're right.
so another question is, so what do you do to protect your customers' IP, intellectual property, in China?
All of our customers are premium name brands, and they have product or applications that are unique to them, and that's why they're able to charge more. And the practice that we take to protect our customers' intellectual property is the burden is really on me. So when the customer awards us a project, it's my job to protect the customer. And so that begins at the quotation stage. Never, ever give the final product design to a supplier. When the supplier asks, oh, I need to see how it fits. No, they don't need to see how it fits. They need to understand how to manufacture that part to those dimensions, to that specification, to that weight. What it looks like, how it fits is not important, because they are making that single given component. So minimize what the supplier sees at the DNA level. That means that the last person that the supplier should visit, the last person that should see your product is the carton guys, the packaging guys. That's the last person. And incidentally, that's the easiest person, the least critical component. Everything's important, but you can wait until last, right? So that pictures of your images don't get out. You can wait after the last 2 weeks. You can use them to get your quotation finalized when generating a bill of materials, right? But that's it. No one should see the final product until it's being manufactured or the carton guys.
So to relay that to your business, you might have a driver design and you're sending it to somebody to stamp your metal baskets for you. All they get to see is that metal basket. They don't need to see the voice coil or anything else that goes into that basket. They just get that component. And then for you, perhaps you're selling that driver on into another system facility or overseas, and all you see is what the driver looks like, and it goes into the carton box and then off to the final assembly.
That's a good example. You're on the money, Dave. As an example, because you're familiar with manufacturing cones, if when the customer asks us to please make the cone neck, please make the neck of the cone, that's through the bobbin to the cone junction, please make that neck not greater than 2 millimeters high, and please make that tangent as tight as possible. And the cone neck the cone supplier asks us, why do you need to have such a short cone neck? And why do we need to have such a gradual tangent? Why does it have to be a 45-degree slope instead of a 60-degree slope? And we don't want to tell the cone supplier, because this kind of a tweeter goes in the middle, right? That's none of their business.
Right.
So we have to really control what the supplier sees at the DNA level, at the component level. That's where all of the mystery, the secret sauce gets lost and then published, because now their friends that own speaker factories say, hey, XYZ is working on this. Here's what they're coming out with. It's really interesting. Or an innocent way is XYZ is coming out this. Does it make sense out of their own salesman curiosity? And loose lips sink a ship. Number one. Number two is be your purchasing person, the brand name owner's purchasing person doesn't have to be an engineer, but don't give it to a newbie, because the more people that see your drawing, the more people that see the brand name owner's drawing, and you don't award that business, that's one more supplier, two more suppliers that have your drawing. And so you have to pick who's going to see your drawing to mitigate, to minimize exposure of your best kept secret.
Yeah, it's compartmentalizing things. And when you get into larger productions, like things like mobile phones or tablets, you can really see, like I worked on the Amazon Fire Phone, and I did not see the product. The material that I did, I had no idea what the device looked like till it hit the stores. We just got certain dummy things to run tests on our materials on, and then it's out the door from us. So it was very isolated. So further to that discussion on intellectual property, what's your recommendation for filing patents in China? What's the procedure?
Okay. Going back to your point on IP, I know what you say to be true, because you and I were working on a project a few years ago, and I asked you, what does the final product look like? And you said, I don't know, because yes. You said, I don't know. And maybe it's true, you don't know. And I wanted to understand the application a little bit more. And it doesn't matter. It just proves out what you just said is true. And so thank you. Yes, you're playing honestly. Regarding your patents, regarding a patent, I own 3 patents in China. And it's under my name and my company's name. And the single most important rule when filing for a patent is a recognition of the fact that first to file. That's it. The protocol follows, as I say, first to file. Forget about what these lawyers tell you, and that's none of that applies. Yeah. You're in China. It's a different world. China doesn't recognize any patents outside of the world, outside of China. They recognize what is filed within China. Okay. So the protocol is like this. I will give you the protocol. I will save you a lot of money by giving you the protocol right now. So, but in turn, you can give me some business. Number one, Chinese translation of the entire patent application, including description and claim. You need that. If you don't have that, you're out. Number two, a power of attorney signed by the patent owner authorizing a Chinese patent attorney to apply for your patent. Number three, the name and the application of the owner of the patent in Chinese characters. Do those 3 things and you're off to the races. Skip one, you're out. Don't cry. Those are the rules.
And are there agents or lawyers in US or Hong Kong outside that people could approach?
Yeah, there's outside agents, and they're going to rape you on pricing. Excuse me. They're going to they're just going to go to a local patent lawyer in China anyway.
Right.
Whether you're in Hong Kong, Philippines, Macau, it doesn't matter. They're going to go to a Chinese patent lawyer because only a Chinese patent lawyer can apply for your patent. So go direct and apply for a patent through a Chinese patent lawyer here in China.
Okay, kind of switching gears here in terms of operations and what can be done as losing employees, especially every year during Chinese New Year. But it is an employees, a seller's market for employees in China these days. What can you do to keep employees in the factories from leaving?
Number one, if we look at the bad things that happen, the incorrect things that happen, it's important to understand what factories are doing wrong before you can do what is right. What is wrong is when you're receiving your POs for Christmas rush, which is going to happen next month. Christmas sales are going to be happening next month. And so when the customer issues a PO and say, we need this for Christmas sale, the factories that go out are going to go send your drawings that we talked about earlier to get an RFQ, put together the pricing, and get the PO by end of this month. So September, October, the parts come in. All of a sudden, they have this spike in a need for laborers. And so what they do is the factories go out and they hire laborers. Well, guess what? All the migrant laborers that are planning to go home for Chinese New Year are very hungry for a job. And so the factories, they know that up front, and they still hire these migrant workers to fill the gap, to fill the explosion of POs instead of planning. So what we do, and then after Chinese New Year, they all leave. They said, where did everyone go? It's like the Red Sea, everyone left.
Right.
Nah. The way you do it, we have about 97, 98% retention of executive staff, operations, engineering, finance, and about 93, 94% retention of laborers. It's it's not a axiological solution. It's a very reality solution, is that you have to pay the laborers the market value and a little bit more. Pay them market value. So in Guangdong, the minimum wage is $13.80, if I'm not mistaken. That's why I have EVA. It's 1380 renminbi per month. That's the minimum wage that the government requires you to pay the minimum to the worker. EVA. And so Qingguolai. What is, hi everyone. Let me see here. This is Eva. Eva, what's the minimum wage that we have to pay workers? What does the government require for minimum wage?
In Guangzhou, it's 2,300 RMB.
How much?
2,300 RMB.
2,300. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. So it's 2,300 renminbi per month is what the government requires as a minimum level. Now, I just gave you an unrehearsed, I swear to God, an unrehearsed reality of how much things cost here. I just gave you a transparent answer to your question. Do the customers that are asking these kind of questions have that level of transparency with the factory? The answer is yes or no. If you don't, pick another factory. You need to have that level of transparency and quick. number one, pay them. So I know that we pay our workers about 12% higher than the minimum level that the government hires, because I don't have time. I don't want to have the worry of my workers. Oh, these guys are paying 50 Rammies more, $10 more a month. So no, just pay them a little bit more.
All right. So moving on. So there's engineering consultants, design shops, whatever you want to call these guys. What's your take on this kind of technical support networks?
Honestly, this is this touches base with with an outside third-party QC team.
Mm-hmm.
The third-party outside QC team should know the upper limits and lower limits of the required frequency response of the driver or the system. They have to understand that upfront, so they ask intelligent questions when they are here. The engineering consultant, although the engineering consultant has many decades of experience, an engineering consultant is a necessary consultant to help the customer achieve the final product that they need. But the engineering consultant, because they have decades of experience, they also have, well, at XYZ, we used to do it like this.
Right.
Or when I was at this company, we used to do it like this, or whatever. So they're also bringing bad habits. Well, guess what? That engineer consultant is now in my factory, and this is the way we do it, and this is the way we measure and quantify and correlate and gather information. And the engineering consultants have to come with an open mind on how to test, measure, quantify, identify, and improve the process with the conditions that are available to them, not only in my factory, but any factory. Mm-hmm. They can't say, well, you don't have this kind of equipment. No, They have to work with what they have, because the business has been awarded. Now, with engineering company, if they have a back channel to the customer saying, oh, this guy isn't qualified because they don't have this piece of equipment, I think that's just utter wrong. I think that's wrong. They should work with what is available to them. That's how I feel about it.
It's like you can get places on a bicycle, a car, or a train. There's many ways to get there, and the engineers that understand first principles are able to pull themselves out of, oh, there's no audio precision gear here, it won't work, or something like this kind of thing. And that doesn't mean you can't build the product, and you can't build it with very good quality. So that's kind of, you're right, it's a stick in the mud kind of thing. They get too long in the tooth and they're inflexible. So and then moving on this kind of third party theme that we got going here, what's your take on trading companies?
Okay. I think that Dave, Mr. Lindberg, you've known me for a few years now. Mm-hmm. The way I speak to you is the way I speak to you in person, and I just can't help myself. There's no filter. I just talk straight. Trading companies had a very important role in the development of drivers or development of speaker systems 20, 30 years ago when China was opening up, because they understood the culture, they understood the application, and on and on and on. Now, there is very little that a Chinese engineer, a Chinese supplier cannot do that, that or cannot understand that a trading company understands. A trading company is important for sensitive products, like if they need a special diaphragm for a MEMS speaker, or if they need a special coating for a special application, or if they need something that is unique, that is not mainstream, that is not off the shelf, then people like you, Dave, are tantamount, critical to the supply chain development of the process, no question.
Mhm.
But for more mainstream stuff like buying a speaker frame, I don't think that a trading company is needed, because it's all about dimensions, material, and cost. But if it's a special product, like a special diaphragm or whatever, then that's a technology that only people like you or the trading company, if they're a viable trading company like yourself, understand and know where to go to get that. So it's
Yeah.
it depends on what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of an economics fundamental. If go translating first principles from engineering, but first principles of business is avoid commodities. So basically what you said, over the last 30 years, commodity items like a speaker basket and stuff, anybody can do that. And there's no reason for a specialty firm to be involved in trading in items that are literally, like there's no margin in there to be had. So I kind of have a theme that I apply to what you just said, and I go, avoid commodity items like the plague, because there's no reason to have a foreigner over here promoting a commodity technology. So that's I agree with you 100% on that one. So another question here is, so kind of switching gears again. So when a brand owner makes their deposit for an order, whether it be for drivers or systems or some other sub-assembly, who knows what it might be, packaging maybe, where are they making their deposits, and how do they secure themselves, I guess, in the transaction is perhaps another way to say it.
When a brand name owner sends $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 into this, is going to China for a deposit, that's like, where's my money? And so they sometimes in the middle of the night, they're going to pull a Scooby-Doo. They're going to say,
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important, critical, that the brand name owner has direct access to the factory, or direct access to someone who has a perfect command of the English language and either owns a factory like myself or is responsible like yourself and has a direct link to the factories that can account for your money is here and why. I can prove your money is here. Here is you sent me $100,000 deposit. Where'd it go? Well, we put $30,000 $33,000 on this to the steel factory. Here's a copy of the invoice. Here's a copy of the wire transfer. Here's a receipt of the purchase order. We put X amount here. We have to have a proof of transaction, because that's a lot of money. Whether it's 1,000, 100,000, it's a lot of money. It's your money, and you need to know where it is. And by having a direct link to the factory, and that goes back to the trading company, or that goes back to the engineering consultant. It's like, can the engineering consultant tell you where your money is? No, but the factory can, the factory owner. And that's why visibility and communication with someone on the ground, boots on the ground, as you say, and I fully agree, is tantamount to having that comfort level. So it's all about communication and comfort level. And never, ever give your money to a new factory unless you have someone that's supporting a new factory.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think it's been challenging for the small to medium-sized enterprises during COVID because their inability to get in to meet potential new suppliers, and or hire trustworthy local people or local agents, whatever it might be. It's been difficult for those guys. The big guys, they always hire the best guys out of Beijing or Shanghai University and super quality, super talented people. It's easy for Apple. It's not easy for a medium-sized speaker company to execute during certain times and secure the transaction with that relationship. Relationship is very important.
But because of that, David, you just said something. Relationships are very important, but it's important not to be complacent in your relationships. Just because you have a relationship for 20 years, 30 years with a given person, when was the last time you fact checked that quotation? When was the last time that you looked deep? It's people follow people. People don't follow factories. So there's relationships. But nowadays, it's a mature industry, and it's important that you as a business owner know that you are getting you are connecting with the right person. That's important to maintain that all the time. Just fact check once in a while.
Yeah, keep them on their toes a little bit.
Little.
So just maybe a final question. What's the situation with the China-US relationships? Is the average person on the ground, do they have a bad view, or is this just the saber rattling by the news media? What's the scoop?
The real deal is, I only know the loudspeaker industry, and the real deal is sales are down, no question. We're down 30, 35% same time last year compared to the same time last year. And that means that my suppliers are down 30, 35% from me. And that means that most other people are down as well. And so factories are hungry. Factories are hungry. Even neodymium went down, the sintering, the powder, it went down a couple percent, but not much, right, because there's a high demand in the manufacturing of magnetic levitation trains and the building of the infrastructure in China. So there's a huge demand for magnets, but the actual sintering went down, which translates to zero cost down to the speaker industry. But the factories are hungry. My cabinet guys that once said, I need a 500 pair at a time, are saying, okay, 300, 250 pair of cabinets at a time, but only one color, so because they don't have the labor to support huge numbers right now. Right now is a buyer's market. Right now is the lowest prices to buy speaker systems that you're ever going to get this year. The prices will start creeping up again around October, November, when the crunch time is on, when the Western buyers realize that, oh, Christmas is here, I need to place my order, even though so right now, the average local person, they don't care. Just like we have nationalistic Americans, you have nationalistic locals here, but they don't account for the business. They're just nationalistic. What is more important, and what people at my level, because I'm a poor factory owner, is that we care about business. So we we forget about the saber rattling and all of that stuff. That's way over my pay grade.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a theme no matter where you are in the world is people are generally the same. This idea that you want to stereotype people that they're like, I think the stereotype should be that more or less globally people are all the same. Once you sit down and have a meal or have a drink with them, it's you just kind of realize that you all have the same common interest to, hey, let's just get through the day, take care of our family and get on with life. So
Except for some people, they like ale, and I don't like ale beer.
okay. Table that, and anybody watching, be sure. Like, I don't think it's going to happen this year, but the loudspeaker sourcing show should be back in 2023, and
We're looking forward to that.
and there's usually a lot of whiskey around that. It's a good show, excellent show. I highly recommend it for people. So, Philip, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, David.
Put your
A
contact
pleasure.
information in the description below, and people feel free to shoot your questions down there as well. We'll make sure that we get them answered for you. So like,
Thank you for your
subscribe,
time.
share, and once again, Philip, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your time and efforts. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.